Good morning. I'm Steve Lentini. I'm a minute early. Welcome to this live chat that's 12 weekly sessions about what I call the Acorn Brain and why leadership teams and leaders struggle, even though, in fact, in today's episode, where I talk about why smart teams still struggle, even when they have talented people and clear goals. And in the last episode, I talked about the first place to look is at the leader and the leadership teams. Who's modeling the behavior that you see somewhere? People follow the behaviors that are modeled. Let me ask you a question about your children. How often do they do what you say? And how often do they rebel against what you say? And then have you ever done something where your children said to you, "Hey, daddy or mommy, I thought you said don't do that, and you're doing it"? Our teams are no different. They follow what we do. And the behavior that you're seeing as a leader, whatever level you're at, if you have a complaint in your mind about your teams, it has something to do with your leadership. And today's episode is about why smart teams still struggle. And they struggle because they have this kind of thinking. They don't question their own thinking. And the most powerful thought that damages us as leaders, that hurts us as leaders, is wanting to be right. And if you don't question your thinking, who will? And if you're not willing to question your own thinking, well, guess what? Your teams will not question their thinking. And this small-minded thinker exists in all of us, as far as I know. We believe our thinking, and that's the challenge. And people can learn to reprogram their minds, but it's not a prevalent conversation in leadership teams. In my clients, it is. We talk about expanding our thinking from small-minded thinking to limitless thinking and to notice our thinking. And many leaders have complaints and grievances about their teams. And instead of expressing what's going on in their mind, they leave it locked in there like a complaint and grievance loop. Many teams struggle because of gossip. They have teams that would rather complain in the cafeteria or on Friday night to friends or at their favorite watering hole. They're complaining and doing nothing about it. But are you modeling that behavior as a leader? It starts at the top. Leaders have to look at themselves, especially when they have complaints, especially if they have complaints and grievances about their teams. And then if you believe that your behavior is fine, that you're welcoming feedback, that you welcome broad discussion of ideas, that you're not always wanting to be right, because when you always want to be right, your teams notice that and it shuts them down. They don't feel safe in expressing disagreement with you. I once had a CEO tell me that I coached for a long time and then I coached his team. He said to me, "Steve, nobody tells me the truth." I said, "Why is that? Let's look at why that is. Are they afraid? Are they afraid of you and what you'll say if they disagree?" Smart teams struggle because they don't know how to lead themselves. They don't know how to question their own thinking. They believe their thinking. Now let's look at why. Well, number one, no one realized that they could reprogram their mind, number one. Number two, no one realized until modern science, and it's getting better and better, neuro researchers are proving that the brain remembers every one of our emotional responses to people and events until we're the age of 35. And it's much like driving. So when you first learn to drive, you're a little nervous and you're paying attention to everything. You're extremely focused. Eventually, the brain takes over. You're driving and you, at least for me, every once in a while, I'll think, "Hey, who just drove the last 4 or 5 miles?" It just happened automatically. Guess what? It's the same thing emotionally. People train their minds and their subconscious with every reaction they have. to people that bother them and bug them, to events that bother them and upset them with negative definitions like fear, anxiety, frustration, disappointment, anger. Those are all low frequency energy thoughts that our teams pick up on. When we're angry, frustrated, disappointed, our teams pick up on it. High frequency energy reprograms the mind. But first, you have to catch the mind. You have to catch the brain thinking. And most people don't. And it begins with leadership. Now, let's think about society. Today, we have leaders, unfortunately, that all they do is this, pointing fingers at each other, believing each side is right. Whatever side they're on, they're right. That's the problem, right? The brain wants us to be right. And you have to notice when you're going to great lengths to shut down others because you believe you're right. And many people don't do it. I would say the majority of the population don't do it. They prefer to defend and argue. And that's what holds leaders back, and it holds smart teams back because they're not questioning themselves. They're not open, and they believe their brains. And when the brain tells them, you better disagree with this, or don't agree with that, or fight this person, or defend yourself, that's the place to pause. Pause, observe your thinking, and learn to consider that at least 10% of what someone else is saying might be right, especially if you're leading a team. If you push back on people every time someone has an idea that you disagree with, you will shut your team down. That's why smart teams and talented people don't achieve their goals. The vast majority of people believe their thinking, and your team leaders have to learn to question it. It doesn't mean they won't be right, but they have to learn to have a dialogue with a vast majority of the people in their team and just listen. You don't need to give an answer every day or in the moment. Hey, let me think about that. That is valuable feedback. That's valuable advice. And I agree with this part of what you say. And here's my thoughts about some of the other things. Or here's what I think, so that you accept the idea that's or 10% of the idea, a portion of the idea that people on your team have, and then you share your thoughts so that there's a dialogue. And that's what's missing so much in companies. There's no dialogue. And leaders aren't willing to accept responsibility that they're the cause. You can be a victim of circumstance if you want and complain and gossip. Talk about another team leader, another department, instead of taking it to the team leader. That's a problem because that's gossip. If you're talking about other departments and other leaders, which the brain loves because it makes you better than someone else. That's the okay, not okay theory. That's why so many reality shows today are popular, because most of the people on reality shows are struggling. There's chaos and conflict. And our brains love to see that because silently the brain says, well, you're not as bad off as that person. Smart teams struggle. Talented people and smart people miss their goals when they're leading teams if they're not aware of the dialogue in their mind and they're not pausing to question their own thinking. That's the key. Neuroscientists say that we're pre-programmed until the age of 35, like driving. The subconscious just takes over. It says, hey, we know what you do when you meet people like this. You give them a piece of your mind, or you get angry and sad and anxious and frustrated. It takes over automatically until you start to reprogram it, and the mind can be reprogrammed. And leaders need to be in that frame of mind. I have clients that I am coaching executives, CEOs, the executive teams, and even supervisors and managers of smaller teams in the company, so that as leaders progress, they learn to question their mind and be open. And their teams respond much better than that with that leadership, with that style of leadership. I had someone call me and say, hey, I need you to talk to a guy. He's fighting me every step of the way. I said, sure. Well, where are you fighting the person? That's the first thought. And so we had a discussion about that. And that leader realized, yes, that leader could be also more open to the ideas that this person who was perceived as a fighter, fighting all the ideas in the company, she and he understood their responsibilities. When I talked to the person and spoke to him about questioning his own mind and all his reactions, and to start noticing where he gets angry, where he gets frustrated, where he gets anxious, and what behavior does that lead him to? Is he living in a state of what I call a reaction? Is he living as a victim? And when he started looking at himself, and I said, you can start at home even. Look at where you are acting like the person that bothers you. And I said, often we can learn the most at home, but we can also learn it at work. When someone is bothering us and they bug us, part of the challenge is that they're showing us parts of us. That's the mirror principle. And so we react. We haven't yet embraced that we have whatever we would accuse them of. And as leaders, when we learn that, we become more compassionate and we have a sense of humor about ourselves. We all have complaints and we all like to gossip. A complaint and a gossip is negative, and it doesn't do you any good if you're talking to the neighbor or you're talking in the cafeteria or you're talking to another leader. Bring it to the people that are part of your complaint. Go to the people who can do something about it. So if you've got a complaint about another team leader, go to the team leader. If you're a team leader and you have complaints about some people on your team, notice the gossip loop that runs in your head. I call it a complaint and grievance loop. Notice that loop and then do what you can about it. In other words, if it's something you can control, that means you have to have a conversation. You have to do something about it. If you can't control it, then you let it go and remind your brain to let it go. That's retraining the mind. It's reprogramming this small-minded thinker. I call it the acorn brain for a reason, because we can see the possibility of becoming an oak. And leaders need to be modeling the behaviors they want to see. And when you don't like some of the behaviors in your team, ask, are you modeling that behavior? Who in your team is modeling that behavior? Who among your leaders is modeling that behavior? And where do we need to elevate ourselves in terms of our self-awareness, our emotional quotient? How can we rise above the so-called chaos and the fray, so to speak? How can we be the referee, the mediator? How can we listen to all sides and encourage a dialogue? And then as a leader, sometimes you make the final decision. But if you're complaining about the culture, the energy you feel, if you walk into a room and say, wow, I could cut the tension in here with a knife, that means there's unexpressed feelings and unexpressed complaints. And that is something that can be trained. People can be taught to rise above the fray and to recognize the energy that's being transferred through the room, right? Like energy lines, like power lines. What's being delivered on your leadership team? What's being delivered by you? What kind of energy are people perceiving from you? So there's low frequency energy, and that means people are stressed, anxious, angry, disappointed, fearful. And if they spend a lot of time in lower frequency energy, by the way, there's a theory that neural researchers are working on. And to some degree, the scientists are saying there's a lower return on investment for time spent in negative energy. And that includes complaints and grievances that you don't do anything about, that loop in your head. Higher frequency energy. And there's a lot of people that are doing this kind of work that like I'm doing today. R.J. Spina wrote the book, Change Your Mind. He talks about higher frequency energy and the return on investment. And the higher frequency energy turns are powerful thoughts, creativity, happiness, joy, openness, open-minded, willing to debate, willing to consider other people's options, looking at yourself. Those are all high frequency energy thoughts. And the return on investment is higher, and your teams can feel it. CEOs that aren't getting the results that they want are leading using lower frequency energy. So it starts at the top. Top producers understand they can manage the energy they project in a room. And higher frequency energy means it's powerful thinking, not negative, low frequency energy. There are thoughts that are the opposite of anxiety, stress, frustration, disappointment, anger, bitterness. They're thoughts like finding things you're grateful for. How about starting meetings? Hey, before we get going, let's go around the room and spend a few minutes about what we're grateful for the last 2 weeks, or what we're grateful for the last month, or what we're grateful for so far this year, elevating the energy in the room. Most people forget that this is a journey in a universe. We're floating on a planet that really is a miracle. We're living in a miracle. And most people don't understand that. They're fighting life. Like Eckhart Tolle says, when you fight life, life fights you. So another thought would be, hey, what are the complaints going around? Let's talk about them. What are things we can all do to help each other overcome some obstacles? What are things that you'd like to share in the cafeteria, but you know you have to bring it up here? Or what are things that you'd like to share with your best friend or your neighbor, but let's bring it up here. Let's get it on the table. Nothing's out of bounds. Let's talk. And you set the boundary before the meeting of number one, high frequency energy, because you're talking about what you're grateful for. Number two, you invite the complaints. You invite what they're talking to themselves about in their mind, because people walk around with grievances and complaints, and leadership teams are not exempt from it. In fact, they're modeling it somewhere. That's why powerful teams, talented teams, smart teams still struggle. They're stuck in their head. Hey, let's do a checkup from the neck up. After gratitudes, how's everybody feeling? Who's got some anxiety and stress about some of our work? Who's got some frustrations? Let's talk about them. Let's get them on the table. That's how you clear them. You bring complaints and grievances to the forefront, and you make sure and encourage people. If you have a complaint and grievance about a team member or another department, let's go to each other and talk about it. Take your complaint to someone who can do something about it. And hopefully you've spent enough time with an idea that to have a complaint is not enough. To take it to the person who can do something about it with an idea. Because if you're gossiping in the cafeteria, you're gossiping with your neighbors, or you're talking about a coworker or a fellow team leader, maybe a fellow on the executive team or a gal on the executive team, if you're complaining to others, you're gossiping, and it's negative, low frequency energy, and you'll only get more of that in your life. And your teams will respond to that. So when you bring high frequency energy, powerful thoughts, and you teach people how to express their complaints by taking it to the people who can do something about it, and you also teach people to live in gratitude, to remember how many blessings they have. First of all, you're all employed. Maybe you have stock, you have a stake in, you have skin in the game, you have stake in the results for the company, of the company. That's something to be grateful for. Remind people about how to elevate their mind, how to reprogram their mind. And neuro researchers are proving with fMRIs that as you reprogram the mind, new neural pathways are opened. It's called neuroplasticity. That's what's missing on companies that are struggling. and leaders that are struggling and teams that are struggling, it begins at the top. What do you believe is not happening? What complaints do you have about your team? What complaints do you have about some of your leaders? It's to get them on the table and talk about it, not in a, hey, you did this. Take the you out of it. Hey, let's talk about the challenges we're facing, and let's get the complaints on the table, and let's have some fun with a dialogue so that we can resolve things and move forward. That's powerful, creative, high energy thinking. And the return on investment in that thinking is much higher than low frequency, or what's also known as primal thoughts. Low frequency, negative, primal thinking are emotions and thoughts that are tied to anxiety, anger, disappointment, frustration, sadness. And when you carry around those thoughts, your team knows it. They know it. And they feel that energy. Defending. That's another low frequency energy. When you get feedback, hey, invite it, especially if you're a team leader. Hey, why don't you share with me some things I could do better? What are you noticing? And when people share, say, hey, thank you for that. I'll take a look at it. That's great. I'll start working on it. It opens up people to be less defensive, and it removes the fear of working with a leader. Earlier in the broadcast, I said I have a leader that said to me, nobody tells me the truth. If you have that same complaint, you have to look at why. They don't feel safe expressing their views and giving you feedback. And yet you expect to give your leadership team's feedback. It's a two-way street. And we all learn by helping each other. And we learn by getting the complaints and grievances out of our head and going to the people and persons that can do something about it. I had someone say to me, hey, I was on a phone call and one of the leaders on the call made me very uncomfortable with what they said. Should I share it? What do you think my answer was? Yes, that'll help the person. Hey, I just wanted to share with you what I felt on the team call the other day and how I perceived the call and the feedback that you were giving. Because imagine not knowing that if we hold things in and we just gossip with neighbors or in the cafeteria or coworkers who can't do anything about it, two things are happening. One is you're burdening them with low frequency energy. You're burdening them. They're now carrying a part of your burden. You complained and left them with the complaint. The second thing is now they look at you as someone who gossips, and they're probably thinking, I wonder what he says about me when I'm not around. It's low frequency energy. And when teams are struggling, even smart people, talented teams, people who ordinarily meet their goals, if all of a sudden they're struggling, it's to look at where are they modeling that? Where are you modeling that? And then how do we change it? How do we elevate people's self-awareness, their emotional intelligence? They have to start noticing their thinking. And where are they responsible for what they're creating? Powerful creators understand it. They're always looking at what's showing up in their life as a gift. Hey, what is this here to teach me? Especially if it doesn't feel good. If it feels good, those are easy. We love the joyful and happy and positive people around us. The negative people and events are our teachers. That's where we have to be grateful for the gift. What is this here to teach me? When you're not getting the results that you want, it's there as a gift to teach you something about yourself. And that's the conversation most teams don't have. Most leaders don't have. Humans love complaints and grievances. And that's the thing you have to be aware of. So my name is Steve Lentini. I wrote the book, amongst others, No BS Coaching. Wake up from the BS you tell yourself. All humans tell a story. The thing to be aware of is something Dr. James Doty says, is the human mind is like a file system and a bloodhound. Whatever you put in the file system, the bloodhound goes looking for evidence of, despite evidence to the contrary. Scientists will tell you that's confirmation bias. So beware of the stories you tell yourself and where you're gathering evidence to prove that it's true. Now you can reach out to me, Steve. Let's go this way, Steve at stevelentini.com. And then the second book I wrote is How to Train Your Mind, written by a dragon, because I'm born in the year of the dragon. And it's about programming the mind, catching it. I also wrote Your Brain is Brilliant. Your brain is brilliant, but it's not always your friend. This is the things to be teaching your teams and yourself, is to question your own thinking. If you won't question it, who will? And then to look at the results you're getting, not with anxiety, disappointment, desperation, frustration, anger, but with high frequency thinking. Hey, what's the gift in this? What is this here to teach us? How can we grow from this kind of event? Not being angry. And the biggest teachers in your life are those people that bug you. Wayne Dyer used to say, when you squeeze an orange, you get orange juice. When we get squeezed, we get what we need to work on. And I take it further and say, we also get the gift of redirection, that it's life coaching us, that life is coaching us. And that's a choice, because most people prefer the victim story, the tale of woe is me. And what I suggest is it's because we're afraid of our power to create in life. We prefer the victim story. We prefer the woe is me tale because there's an excuse. After all, it's somebody else's fault. It's government's fault. It's society's fault. It's my sex, that's the fault. The color of my skin, that's the fault. There is no tale of victim and woe when we learn to recognize we've been given our journey as a gift by a superior reasoning power. That's the next thing to consider. Do you have a higher power? We've been given whatever journey we're on by something much smarter than ourselves, an intelligence that created a universe. That's why gratitude for living in a miracle is so powerful. And powerful thoughts generate more powerful results. It's to look at why you are getting the results you're getting from this perspective. Hey, what is this here to teach me? Not why is this happening to me? That's woe is me thinking. Hey, if you like this so far, give me a thumbs up. Thank you for those that have. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And if you'd like others, if you like the message, hey, suggest that they subscribe to my channel. So this is about leadership, with leaders changing first and leaders learning to reprogram their minds, which most people don't want to do. They want to believe they're thinking. And it's very powerful. I can tell you, the brain loves to be right. That's the caution. That's where you put up the yellow flag and say, wait a minute, let me take a few laps under caution and pause, reflect, and observe. Observe whether your mind is mostly negative or mostly positive. Are you more than 50% of the time in negative thinking, what's called primal thinking? Or are you more often in positive, creative, powerful thinking? Can you notice the emotions that often arise in your body? Are they more tied to thoughts like this? Emotions like this: anger, frustration, anxiety, sadness, stress, disappointment, especially if it involves others. They can feel it. Or are your thoughts more powerful, positive, but not just positive in the Pollyanna way, powerful thinking, which are creative, accepting, open, grateful, looking at life as a gift and a friend? As Einstein used to say, that was the major question, whether we live in a hostile or a friendly universe. And most people decide one or the other. If you decide we live in a hostile universe, you're going to be more frequently angry in low frequency energy thoughts. Frustrated, angry, stressed, disappointed, sad. Those are low frequency energy. And the more time you spend in those thoughts, the more events you get to justify those thoughts, because the brain goes looking for evidence to prove whatever you've decided is true, right? The BS story, as I write about in my book, No BS Coaching. If you'd like to see any of the books that I've written, go to steveLentiniAuthor.com. Steve Lentini Author. Now, I'm not selling anything here. I'm helping people. And if you email me, Steve Lentini, I'm glad to send you one of my books. What I'm doing is helping people, leaders in particular, understand their responsibility for what you're creating. If you have a complaint about anybody on your team or departments or leaders, you have a responsibility to go to them. And you have to look at what is it that you are modeling, and then also what are your team leaders modeling if their departments are not performing. And to not be sad or depressed or anxious about it, to be grateful and look at what is life asking me to do differently? What can I learn here? How can I change? How can I grow? Because life is a gift. It's coaching you. It's for you. My work is about looking at life for you as a gift and reminding you we live in a miracle, right? Here we are. Here's the earth, by the way. I keep this next to my desk. This is the earth painted on a marble. And physicists say, actually, we are floating on something smaller in relation to the size of the universe, that we're more likely like a grain of sand, but we take ourselves so serious. The biggest thing leaders can do for their teams is get over themselves. Be open to feedback, have a sense of humor about yourself, be grateful, spend more time in powerful, positive, creative thinking, as opposed to negative, primal thinking. And that's what leaders' responsibility is, because other people feel it and they'll follow you into more powerful, high energy thinking. Have you ever gone into a room and said, wow, I could cut the tension in here with a knife? You're feeling low frequency, primal thinking. And that tells you the power of your own thinking. And that when you learn to manage your thinking and when you learn to manage your thoughts, that you don't have to believe every thought you have, especially the low frequency negative, anxious, anxiety, stressed, disappointed, sad, depressed. None of those thoughts are true. In the moment, they may feel that way. It's your job to reprogram it. That's why you have those thoughts. The brain is urging you to reprogram it, and it's your past that has programmed those thoughts. Just like driving, your brain remembers all your past reactions and emotional responses to people and events, especially the ones that bug you. That's the place to get to. Find the gift. Find the gift in everything. Life is coaching you. Now, if you want extra advice, I'm glad to give anyone on this live a free coaching. Just email me, steve@stevelentini.com. I'll show you again how to spell it. Let's go the other way, Steve. Steve@stevelentini. Steve@stevelentini.com. Email me. I'll give you free coaching. I'll talk about it. I'll help you overcome some challenge you're having and to find the gift in it, because it's life urging you to change. That's what happened to me. I had a near-death experience, and it was the greatest gift of my life. And it woke me up to this work, and I've been doing it for 8,516 days. That's how many extra days I got after I flatlined. And I got a peek at what awaits us. And that's when I realized I had touched a lot of lives. I didn't realize it, that we're here to do good. We're here to overcome this small-minded thinking, and that especially as leaders, we have to model that behavior. And sadly today, even our leaders at highest levels, all they do is this. And then they're shocked when the general population acts differently. Our leaders are modeling poor behavior. It's happening in your company. It may not be similar to politics, but it's people believing their thinking to be true. And that's the place to help people get over themselves, not be so serious, to accept feedback with welcoming arms. Hey, thank you for that feedback. I'll take a look at it. I'll start working on it. And to overcome the loop of complaints and grievances that lead to gossip and negative energy in a company. Encourage your teams, if they have a complaint, to bring it to the person or people that can do something about it. And have this kind of discussion. If you're bringing it to the cafeteria, if you're bringing it to Friday nights with friends, you're wasting your energy. Bring it here. Maybe you have a meeting where you talk about complaints once a week or once every 2 weeks. Hey, this is our complaint meeting. What's going on? What do we need to work on? What are we all complaining about with each other? What are you complaining about me about? Be open, because that's an energy that's powerful. And it teaches people what to do with this complaint and grievance loop that I talk about. It becomes powerful. You sweep things under the rug, it doesn't do any good. All right, any questions? Again, email me, steve@stevelentini.com. If you want to see the whole collection of my books, stevelentiniauthor.com. And I'm glad to give you free coaching. Reach out to me. I'm here to help. That's what I do. There's going to be 12 more of these sessions because I'm going to do 13 instead of 12. This is episode 2. And tune in next Friday if you'd like to hear more about the third episode. Here, I'll tell you, episode 3. I'll give you the cliff notes about episode 3 as soon as I find them. Episode 3. Come on, episode 3. Episode 3. What did I do with it? Sorry about that. Episode 3. Well, I'll make it up. So episode 3 is going to be ongoing about the Acorn Brain and leadership. I do have a title for it. I will publish it. Sorry, I didn't have it right at my fingertips today. But so episode 3, and there's going to be 13 altogether because I'm giving a free episode at the end, which is helping you become a top producing leader and a human being that's open to life as a gift and looking at life as a friend, and that life is coaching you. Now, I don't recommend that you go through life without a coach because I am a coach, but life is coaching you when you start to look at what can I do to overcome this? What questions are better than why? What is life teaching me here? What am I supposed to learn? What's a new direction I can take? That's up to you. All right. Thank you all for attending. I'm grateful.